The UN Security Council holds an emergency meeting to discuss yesterday's chemical attack in Syria. Activists call it one of the worst in the country's civil war. The death toll is now at 72 people, including at least 20 children and 17 women. Today, new airstrikes hit the same area, but they didn't cause casualties because everyone was evacuated following yesterday's chemical attack. President Trump calls the chemical attack shocking and says it crosses many lines. He addressed the issue while standing alongside one of Syria's neighbors. King Abdullah II of Jordan is paying a visit to the White House today. He says the savagery in Syria is something he knows President Trump will not tolerate and pledged Jordan's full support.
That attack on children yesterday had a big impact on me. Big impact. That was a horrible, horrible thing. And I've been watching it and seeing it, and it doesn't get any worse than that.
President Trump says the U.S. will contribute humanitarian money to Jordan to help Syrian refugees. The two leaders also pledged to eradicate ISIS and work for peace in the Middle East. U.S. lawmakers also condemned the Syrian chemical attack. Florida Senator Marco Rubio and Maryland Senator Ben Cardin agree Syrian President Bashar al-Assad must go.
As long as Bashar al-Assad is in Syria, there will be radical elements in Syria, not just fighting to get rid of him, but fighting ultimately to spread that ideology to other places. That's why it's in our national security interest.
Senator Cardin urged the U.S. to act, adding, "We cannot allow this type of conduct to happen." Joining us now is Blaise Misztal, Director of National Security for the Bipartisan Policy Center. Blaise, President Trump criticized the Obama administration for not being tough enough on Assad. Now it's Trump's term. He's in a similar position. He's called these attacks horrific, unacceptable, but he hasn't indicated how he's going to take action. What are his options?
It's good to be with you, Wyatt. I think the question really isn't about options or even outrage, but it's about objectives. What does the United States want to accomplish in Syria? What do we think our interests are there? And I think both the world and the American people are waiting for President Trump to articulate what is he going to want to see happen in Syria. Is it just fighting ISIS? Is it going to be fighting Assad as well? Is it going to be just hitting and running, or is it going to be a longer presence there to build stability in the region?
So he has to define that. Can Trump act on his own, or does he need to build a coalition with other leaders?
Absolutely, a multilateral approach is always the best approach for the United States, both to lower the cost for us and because it makes it easier to accomplish things on the ground. But I think what we learned from this example is that the United States is still the leader of the world. It's no coincidence that the day after President Trump's administration said that they were not focused on Assad, Assad launched a chemical weapons attack. It's up to the United States to lead and set the example and the objective for the rest of the civilized world to follow.
As you know, when it comes to the Middle East, nothing happens to one country without impacting other countries. If Assad was removed from power, who takes over? What happens?
That's an excellent question, and that has kept people from wanting to do anything about Assad. But I think starting with the question of what happens to all of Syria is the wrong question to ask. You have to start looking at it area by area. So what are we going to do about the Kurdish north? Can they rule themselves? What are we going to do about Iraq and the territories held by ISIS? What sort of government can take place there? And if you sort of answer this piecemeal question, then you can put that together into a bigger plan for Syria. But you should absolutely not just try to get rid of Assad and assume you're done.
So what else do you think the U.S. should consider doing as it figures out not only Syria but the whole region?
Yeah, well, I think fundamentally we need to be thinking about the stability of the region. What will prevent us from having to come back in 5 years or 10 years or intervene in another conflict? And the question there is, really, are Syria and Iraq real states? Should we be aiming at putting these states back together the way they were? Or is there something pathological about that? And we need to think about other configurations, other political models that might be more stable, that might allow repressed minorities like Christians to have a say in their own government that can lead to a much more stable Middle East in the future.
Our relationship with Turkey right now is strained because of President Erdogan and concerns with violations there, crackdown on journalists, for example. Do you think we can work with Turkey and be effective?
Well, what we've seen thus far is that Erdogan's objectives are a far cry from the United States. And that divergence has actually been to the harm of both us and the people of the region. Finding a way to bring Turkey and President Erdogan more in line with our own interests is, I think, fundamental, and that again requires us, our leadership, the President Trump saying this is what we want to accomplish, and President Erdogan, you need to get on board.
It's definitely a tough situation. Blaise Misztal, Director of National Security for the Bipartisan Policy Center, thanks so much for your insight.
Thank you, Wyatt.